First off, I want to say shalom, salam, assalamu alaikum, hotep, black power, whatever's your favorite. The Nine-Nation, Akamjata, and Kamelahi. Habeen with Knox and Queens, I'm feeling it in. Yes, I pray, I believe in the truth and the planting of these seeds. Yeah, yes, I pray, I believe in the impossible things that's unseen. Yeah, yes, I pray, I believe.
Shalom, shalom, kulam. This is YAHOSHUA, Bang Yehuda, aka YHWH. Melech. All right. So, like I said, in 2026, we're doing something new this year. We're trying to get things in order. So, this is BYSA TZEDAKAH. This is the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave Holocaust. Tash. Prophesied in Joel 3:6. All right, let's get it. All right. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to go over. And first, we want to start off with what YAHOSHUA HaMashiach, YAHOSHUA the Messiah, said. So, number one, times of the Gentiles is white supremacy. TOTG is WS, right? Time of the Gentiles is white supremacy. Luke 21:20-24. So, YAHOSHUA, in English, you will say Joshua, but the world incorrectly calls Jesus Christ, right? So YAHOSHUA or Joshua, Ha, which means the Mashiach, which means Messiah, right? YAHOSHUA HaMashiach, YAHOSHUA the Messiah, or Joshua the Messiah, who the world incorrectly calls Jesus, made a prophecy concerning the people of Yehuda, Judah, the Judeans, and Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. The land and temple will be destroyed by the Gentiles, which is Japheth, the Europeans, the white people, right? Indo-Europeans. He stated this in 33 AD, and 37 years later, in 70 AD, it was fulfilled. All right. And then in Genesis 10, that's when we'll go over who, so if you read Luke 21:20-24, you'll see those verses. All right. Luke 21:20. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, will be surrounded by armies, right? And that is revealed to be the Romans in 70 AD. Luke 21:21 says Yehuda, Judah, Judeans is fleeing from the Romans. Luke 21:22, it says the days of vengeance is the Messiah being cut off and the destruction of the temple by the Romans in Jerusalem in 70 AD. And you can read that in Daniel 9:26-27. Luke 21:24. It says Judah, the Judeans or Yehuda, being killed and taken into worldwide captivity, slavery, unto all nations, starting in 70 AD, right? So starting in 70 AD to 1619 AD, you have to look and see, okay, so if we're going to start at 70 AD, we have to look from 70 AD on. So when you look from 70 AD to 1619, there you have when Yehuda or Judah or the Judeans is taken into a worldwide captivity, slavery into all the nations, All right, so starting in 70 AD to 1619 AD, and then the land of Jerusalem was trodden down by the Gentiles, Japheth, Europeans, white people. So the times of the Gentiles is the power. So it's Gentile power, Japheth power, white power, European power, Indo-European power, whitewash, white power, Gentile whitewashing, Gentile power, Japheth power. You're going to see that. So the land of Jerusalem trodden down by the Gentiles, Japheth, Europeans, white people, and captivity of Yehuda or Judah, the Judeans, until the times of the Gentiles, which is the whitewashing, the whitewash, the white power, and white supremacy is over. That's where we're at. That's where we're living in right now. All right. So Genesis 10, 1 through 5. This chapter reveals how Japheth or Japheth, right, is the Gentiles, Europeans, white people today. There are some Gentiles, white people that we can recognize today. Genesis 10, 2. Japheth has sons, Gomer and Yawan. These sons are important for you to know and have understanding concerning the prophecy in Luke 21, 20 through 24. Genesis 10, 3. Gomer had a son named Ashkenaz. We have Jews that proclaim and they call themselves Ashkenazi Jews. And they are European, Japheth, they are European Jews, and they come from Japheth, right? So Genesis 10, so that's one name that you recognize. And they, some of the European Jews, actually the Spanish and some of the European Jews participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. So they were one of the people who's going to fulfill the prophecy of what actually happened to Judah, the Judeans in 70 AD that escaped Israel, went into Africa, went to West Africa, and was brought to the Americas and the islands. So Ashkenazi and the Spanish Jews, they were some of the ones that participated. Not all, but they did have a participation in it, right? Genesis 10:4, Yawan. So Yawan is the Greeks, as you see up top, to the right. Yawan is Greece, the Greeks. And Yawan had a son, right? He had a bunch of sons, but one of the sons was named Kittim. And Kittim is the Romans. So if you research these two sons and the participation in the transatlantic slave Holocaust, Tash, it was anti-Shemitic, anti-children of Israel, anti-Bnei Israel, and anti-black hate and Holocaust. All right. Now, Joel 3, 1 through 6, it speaks about the turning back of the captivity of Yehuda, Judah, the Judeans, and Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, right? So Joel 3:1, it says Yehuda and Yerushalayim captivity will be turned back. Joel 3:2, it says gathers all Gentiles, white people, Japheth. Now, Gentile also has a secondary definition. It means all those non-Israelite nations as well, right? So you have Gentiles, Gentiles from Ham, Gentiles from Shem, and Gentiles from Japheth. So you have Gentiles that are Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And these are nations that are non-Israelite. But also the primary definition of Gentile is Japheth, these white people, these Europeans. Because the white people, the Europeans, the Indo-Europeans are actually the ones who are the leaders. They're the head of the other Gentiles, of the other pagan, heathen, idolatrous nations who work with Japheth, and they both work hand in hand to persecute, destroy, and get at Bnei Israel, BYSA, the children of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. And these other different nations also were included in the transatlantic slave Holocaust as well. But the primary was Japheth, white people, European, Indo-European. All right. So Joel 3, 1 through 6 speaks about the turning back of captivity of Yehuda, Judah, Judeans, and Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, right? Joel 3:1 speaks on Yehuda and Yerushalayim, captivity turned back. Joel 3:2 gathers all Gentiles, white people, Japheth, bring them down to the valley of YAHOSHUA. That's a place in Israel to enter judgment there for Yahweh's people, for the captivity, slavery, and the scattering of Bnei Israel, children of Israel, and dividing up the land, Israel and Yerushalayim. Joel 3:6, it says the people of Yehuda, or Yehuda, Judah, the Judeans, and the people of Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, right? So the people of Yehuda, the people of Judah, the people of Jerusalem, you have sold to the sons of Yawan. Remember, Yawan is Greeks. And the son of Yawan, one of the sons of Yawan that's major, is Kittim, which is the Romans, right? And which are the Romans far from their border. So it says that you have sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the sons of Yawan far from their borders. So, to the Americas. So that's going to be to the Americans in the transatlantic slave Holocaust, Tash, in 1619. So 70 AD to 1619 prophecy. All right. So, of course, Joel 3:6, and the people of Yehuda, Judah, Judeans, and the people of Jerusalem, you have sold to the sons of Yawan, Kittim Romans, to remove them far from their borders. Israel is in Northeast Africa and sits on the African tectonic plate. Israel is on the continent of Africa, right? So Israelites, Hebrew, Shemitic, they're actually Africans. They're just Shemitic Africans. They're Northeast Shemitic Africans. All right. So Yehuda, Judah, the Judeans, they fled to Africa, north and then east, and then they went down south. And then remember the Indian Ocean or the Arab slave trade, that was wicked. Then these people had to flee to west coast of Africa. And then that's where they got caught up in the transatlantic slave trade. All right. So Yehuda fled to West Africa and was taken into captivity to the Americas, USA, to be sold as slaves far from their borders. Not just far, not just from the land of Israel, but from the continent of Africa, what we call Eden, right? Across the Atlantic Ocean. So the people of Yehuda and the people of Jerusalem was loaded up in ships, because when they fled Israel in the 70 AD, they went to Africa. They was amalgamated within and amongst the Hamitic Africans. So now you have the Shemitic East Africans being amalgamated with Central and West Hamitic Africans. Now they're kind of merging together. So now when the slave trade, when you pick these people up, you're going to pick up, you're still picking up, it's still prophecy. You're still picking up the children of Israel. They just been merged together and amalgamated with the West, with the Hamitic West Africans. Now, here's something I want people to think about. The Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. So the offshoot nations of Rome is this nation. These are the same nations that participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. So the offshoot nations of Rome is Italy, France, Spain, Portugal. Portugal was the main. United Kingdom, Britain. Later, USA is offshoot of Britain. United Kingdom. Germany, Belgium, and Austria. Greece is Yawan. That's the father of Kittim, which is the Romans. So the Romans, Kittim is the sons of Yawan. The nation that was part of the transatlantic slave Holocaust was one: Portugal, Spain, Great Britain, later USA, France, Netherlands, Sweden, United States, because it's later USA. Not all, but some Jewish individuals participated in the transatlantic slave trade, the transatlantic slave Holocaust. So our Holocaust actually started in 1619. So 1619 to 2019, that's a 400-year Holocaust. You know what I'm saying? And they participated in the transatlantic slave trade and slave Holocaust, and they had slave ships and was in the business of slavery. Research it, you all. But 3, all roads leads back to Rome. In 70 AD, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. The temple and the people of Yehuda, Judah, Judeans was exiled, killed, and they took them into captivity. YAHOSHUA, Joshua, stated that Yehuda would go into captivity into all nations by the Gentiles, Japheth, Europeans, white people. Romans are descendants of Japheth. After the Romans fell, the offshoot nations of Rome showed up at West Africa to participate in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. Yehuda, Judah, the Judeans, the Shemitic people, right? The Shemitic Hebrews, the Israelites who escaped to Africa got amalgamated amongst the indigenous Hamitic people. So when Bnei Israel, children of Israel, especially Yehuda, Judah, was on west coast of Africa, they were taken into captivity and sold to the sons of Yawan, the Romans, far from their borders, into the Americas and the islands. Mostly Yehuda, but a mix of some of Bnei Israel that was in West Africa before Yehuda even arrived in West Africa, fulfilling the prophecy. So you can also look at the pictures as well. You can see You see up top, the slaves on the slave ship, but you see the offshore nation of Rome. Then you look on the bottom, these people, and plus Ashkenaz and some of the Jewish individuals, Spanish and Ashkenaz, they participated in the slave trade. You see the man selling the families off. Yeah, so this is prophecy. All right. So again, I just want you to see. Yeah, I just want you to see the next slide, the next picture. So I already went over the content there. I just want you to see Yawan, right, which is Greece, and Kittim, which is the Romans, Joel 3:6, and the people of Yehuda and the people of Yerushalayim you have sold to the sons of Yawan. One of the major sons of Yawan is the Romans, so keep that in mind. So you sold them to the Romans to remove them far from the borders. But it's not just the Romans, it's the offshoot nations of Rome, because Rome fell in 476 AD. So the offshoot nations of Rome participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. So you see Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, United Kingdom, Britain, later USA, Germany, Belgium, Austria, and Greece is the father. So you have a Greco-Roman, that's Greece and Rome, Yawan and Kittim, Greco-Roman, Christianity, Greco-Roman religion, Greco-Roman language, culture, the Greco-Romans working together. And then they said the Judeo Christian. So you have some of Ashkenaz, you have some of the people who say that they are Jews, right? You have this Greco-Roman, you have this Yawan and Kittim and Ashkenaz connection, Judeo-Christian connection together, working together, participating in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. And then remember, so that's Christianity and that's Judaism. And then you have the Arab slave trade. So now we have all three religions that have participated in the enslavement of the children of Israel, of BYSA. They participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. You even have the Indian Ocean slave Holocaust. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about that. That's the Arab slave trade. That's something I'll speak about in the future. But we're just speaking about this right now. All right. Number 4, B'nai Israel, Yehuda, worldwide captivity, right? Worldwide captivity, slavery. So remember, in Luke 21:24, it says, and they who, Israel, B'nai Israel, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are filled. So, in the Brit HaKadashah, the renewed covenant, the New Testament, YAHOSHUA, the Messiah, spoke on B'nai Israel, Yehuda captivity to all nations. Joel 3:6. It says, and the people of Yehuda and the people of Yerushalayim you have sold to the sons of Yawan to remove them far from their borders. So in the Nebi'im and the prophets, right, the prophet Joel spoke on B'nai Israel, Yehuda, being sold as slaves, going into captivity, being sold to the sons of Yawan, Kittim, the Romans, and going to the USA far from their borders and the transatlantic slave Holocaust Tash. So in Luke 21, we have a witness with YAHOSHUA, right? That's the Brit HaKadashah. Joel, we have a witness, Nebi'im. And then Deuteronomy is in the Torah. That's Moses, and that's in the Torah, right? Deuteronomy 28:64. And YAHWH shall scatter you among all peoples, from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other mighty ones, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. In the Torah law, Moses speak on the children of Israel, B'nai Israel, basically, and / Yehuda being scattered, Judah being scattered to all nations as slaves and serve and follow other Elohims, other gods, other religions that our forefathers didn't know. Part 2, BYSA people, Mitzrayim, house of bondage, not ancient Egypt, a return to slavery. Deuteronomy 28:68, and YAHWH shall bring you back to Mitzrayim, or Egypt, or house of bondage in ships, by a way of which I said to you, you are never to see it again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one to buy you. So Right. And Yahweh shall bring you back to Mitzrayim in ships, by way of which I said to you, you are never to see it again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one to buy. All right. So, as you see on the side, Japheth, Yawan, Greeks, and the sons of Yawan, which is Kittim. But I got a picture of Japheth. Genesis 10, 1 through 5. I got the verses right there. Genesis 10, 1 through 5 says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, until them were born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, and Madai, and Yawan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, that's verse 3. Genesis 10, 3. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. 4. And the sons of Jawan, or Javan, or Yawan, right? Elishar and Tarshish, Kittim, which is the Romans, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their land. So the isles of the Gentiles divided. So the Gentiles have lands, everyone after their tongue, they have languages, after their families, they have families and they have nations. But remember, this is talking about Japheth. Gentile does have a secondary definition, or the nation. But right here, we're talking about Japheth, the white people, the Europeans. All right. So Genesis 10, 1 through 5, this chapter reveals how Japheth is the Gentiles, Europeans, white people. There are some Gentiles, white people that we can recognize today. Genesis 10, 2, Japheth has sons, Gomer and Yawan. These sons are important for you to know and have understanding concerning the prophecy in Luke 21, 20 through 24. And also Genesis 10, 3, Gomer had a son named Ashkenaz. And we have Jews that proclaim and call themselves Ashkenazi Jews. And they are Europeans / Japheth. So Genesis 10, 4, Yawan is the Greek, had a son named Kittim, which is the Romans. Research these two sons and the participation in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. Tash, they were anti-Shemitic, they was anti-B'nai Israel, the children of Israel, and anti-Black hate and Holocaust. And we're going to wrap this up and finalize it. So, number 7, Gentiles has 2 definitions. Sons of Japheth, white people. 2, in the nations of Ham, Shem, and Japheth that were heathens, pagans, idolaters, and were non-Israelites. So 1, Gentiles' primary definition is Noah's sons Japheth, and the sons of Japheth, which are European, Indo-European, white people, etc. Genesis 10, 1 through 5. And then Gentiles' secondary definition is all the nations that are not Israelite or non-Israelite peoples from the nations of Ham, Shem, and Japheth that practice paganism and idolatry. Those who don't follow Torah and worship Yahweh. Deuteronomy 18:9, Jeremiah 10:2, and Ezekiel 20:32. So we need to know both definitions of who the Gentiles are, because in one context, they will actually be Japheth and the sons of Japheth, which participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. Tash, 1619 and 2019, 400 years. In 2026, we have 407 years and counting. So it states that Yehuda, Judah, will be sold to the sons of Yawan. Yawan is one of the descendants of Japheth, which is the Greeks. Kittim is one of the sons of Yawan, and Kittim is the Romans. The offshoot nation of Rome participated in the transatlantic slave Holocaust. Joel 3:6. And the people of Yehuda and the people of Yerushalayim, you have sold to the sons of Yawan to remove them far from the borders. Joel 3:6. Hallelujah. So I hope this clarifies. I hope you can see now how Joel 3:6 prophesies the transatlantic slave Holocaust, going from West Africa to the Americas, North America, South America, USA, the islands. So I hope this is a wake-up call and truth for everybody. If you're Israelite, if you're Black, if you're FBA, African-American, if you're white, Asian, Arab, Jewish, whoever you are, this is true for everybody. All right. So one thing I want to do, I just want to thank you for watching. And subscribe to the channel. So BYSA, TZEDAKAH, that's going to be the channel. Okay. All right. May y'all bless you. May y'all keep you. May he shine his face upon you and give you peace.
Yes, I pray, I believe in Yahweh, Elohim, and YAHOSHUA is King. Yes, I pray, 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 I pray 5 times a day. 5 times a day. Yeah.
I'm Afro-Asiatic, yeah. Hebrew Israelite, Shemitic, man, she's Afro-Asiatic. I'm Afro-Asiatic, yeah. Southern, I'm Central, but we still have the